are live. Welcome back, everybody, to my live stream, Archaeologist reacting to Zahi Hawass on the Joe Rogan Experience. So, I fully intended in trying to do it in one sitting, but I talk too much, basically. So, we're back for part two. We made it through the first hour and 20 minutes last night. Today, I am planning on doing the last 40 minutes. Hopefully, it's not going to take me super long. That would be nice, but we'll see. We're about to start talking about the Sphinx, the Great Sphinx of Giza. Yesterday was mostly about the pyramids. Just a quick recap, if you didn't watch yesterday. Actually, before I get into that, if you haven't watched part one, it's obviously on the channel. It was copyright banned this morning, so that's what I woke up to today. But luckily, I was able to dispute it, and it was lifted. So I'm grateful for that, because it falls under fair use, because it's a commentary. I'm not just like watching this and saying, oh, I like it. I'm using it as an opportunity to educate. And also, but if you watch part one, maybe wait until tomorrow, because I had tech issues yesterday for the first 5 minutes with my audio. So I have to go back and edit that out, because otherwise it will really bother me. But yeah, I'm going to just, if you haven't watched yesterday's, I'm just going to do a quick introduction, kind of rehashing what I said yesterday, and then also some of the stuff that we covered, and then we'll get into today and just keep going. So, if you're new here, hi, my name is Rachel. I am an archaeologist. I run Inside Archaeology. I have a undergraduate and a master's degree in archaeology. And I worked as a professional field archaeologist in both Canada and the UK for a couple of years. And my original thing that brought me into archaeology, like my love, was ancient Egypt. I've been obsessed with it since I was a kid. I originally wanted to be an Egyptologist, but I decided to go down a different route with my degrees, but I'm still very, very interested in it. So I've done a couple of videos on it on my channel. There's a few things that I pretty regularly research in ancient Egypt. I'm not going to say that I'm an Egyptologist, but I probably know more about Egypt than the average archaeologist or the average person, I would hope. Before this, I had never watched Joe Rogan. The last time I saw him on TV, I'm just going to adjust my camera. The last time I saw him on TV was Fear Factor. His podcast just isn't something that really is something that I watch ever. So this is interesting. My impression of him from yesterday is kind of a bit underwhelmed. Like, I understand that he has like an everyman appeal for people, then that's great. But he keeps on saying in the videos that he loves Egypt. He loves it. But he has never been there. And he's asking all these like kind of really basic questions about Egypt. Maybe he's doing that because he's trying to bring his audience in, and he knows the answer. Fair enough to him. But I don't know. For someone who says that they love Egypt, he doesn't really seem to know a lot about it. That's all I'm going to say. Dr. Zahi Hawass, in case you didn't know, is an Egyptian archaeologist and Egyptologist. He was the head honcho of Egyptian archaeology for a very long time, until 2011 as the Minister of Antiquities. He is qualified. He does know what he's talking about. He has a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. He worked as an inspector on various sites in Egypt before becoming minister, including at Giza. I think his PhD was actually written on Giza as well. He has had a huge impact on Egyptian archaeology. He is a very big personality. It rubs a lot of people the wrong way. He's a very polarizing person. But at the end of the day, he's done a lot for reclaiming Egyptian archaeology for Egyptians. Before him, it was very much something that was led by a lot of foreign teams. And now, Egyptians really have to be involved. And that is, I think, direct, or at least from what I have been told by people who work in Egyptology, that is directly as a result of his emphasis. He's also very well known for the fact that he really likes to be on TV. If you've watched a documentary about ancient Egypt in the past 25 years, he's probably in it, or, the main person that the documentary features. And he's not officially like the Minister of Antiquities or anything anymore in Egypt, but he's still very active in archaeology. He had a Netflix documentary come out about either last year or the year before, which I have reviewed on the channel. So if you have a quick search, you should be able to find it. And he's still writing books and doing lecture tours. The reason he's on Joe Rogan, I think, is partially to promote his lecture tours and definitely to try and sell his book. And yeah, I think the key thing to remember about him is that there's a lot of hearsay about Zahi Hawass. I kind of need to say that. There's a lot of things that people will say about him. None of it's been proven in a court of law. There was a interesting story yesterday about some conspiracy that he had a tunnel running from his office bathroom to the Great Pyramid where he hid stuff, which I thought was hilarious. That's not true. As much as he likes to present himself as the be all end all of Egyptian archaeology, it is important to remember that he does not represent the views of all archaeologists or all Egyptologists. He is one person. It's not possible for one person to be the entire representative of a whole profession like this. But that's not to say that he also doesn't have a huge impact and is a very, very big figure in Egyptian archaeology. He has a pretty big ego. I think I said yesterday that it's about as big as the Great Pyramid, and I don't know, hopefully, I don't know. I think I would actually maybe say that to his face. Maybe his team is watching this, but we'll see. And I think that he, similarly to many other archaeologists, I think he's quite sick of people doubting Egyptians and the fact that they were able to achieve the things that they were. If one thing about him that you can't say is that he doesn't care about ancient Egyptians or preserving Egyptian archaeology. That's just categorically untrue. This man cares more about it probably than any other person on the earth. That is very, very obvious. So we've prepped for today. Yesterday I was showing you, I have my complete pyramids. This is by Mark Leonard, who is the only other archaeologist who's gotten things about the pyramids right, according to Zahi Hawass yesterday when we watched the show. They actually have a book together, which I think I've been told is the book that he's referencing constantly on the stream when he says, it's in my book. It's called Giza and the Pyramids. It was released in 2017. It's a bit more up to date than this one. This one I bought for £3 off of Amazon secondhand, and it was published in 1997. So there is a lot of stuff that's happened since then that's not in this book, but this is still an excellent reference for diagrams, photos, etc. about the pyramids, but it doesn't have necessarily everything. So I have found a PDF version of it, so hopefully we'll be able to find a few of the photos that he might be talking about today, but if you really want to see the photos that he is referencing and speaking about in the live stream, I would recommend that you watch Flint Dibble's live video on because he has also done a reaction to this interview on his channel, but he went through and found all of the photos that Zahi Hawass references. Some of them are difficult to find on the internet. And I think the reason people think it's like a conspiracy, my personal opinion would be that Zahi Hawass comes from a generation of archaeologists that publishes things in physical media. And he owns the copyright to all of those images so that they can't just be copied onto the internet without his permission. And he clearly doesn't see a reason, or doesn't have a reason, or hasn't really thought about it in terms of being able to put these things on the internet where it's instantly available for people to look up and reference. And that is his prerogative. He owns that information. maybe one day it'll end up in the internet. We'll have to see. Yeah, I think it would be very useful to have a lot of that information on the internet. I remember when I was researching the tombs of the pyramid builders, which is something that he referenced on the show and is one of his like major finds that he personally has made. The website page produced by him about it left a lot to be desired. So yes, I wish it was more readily available on the internet. Anyway, yes. Okay, let's just look at the chat. They couldn't find the book at all throughout the podcast. Yeah, it's interesting. So here's the thing. For all that he constantly says in the podcast, and he will probably continue doing this today, it's in my book. It's in my book. It's in my book. Didn't bring the book to give to Joe Rogan, which I thought would be standard. My overall impression so far of the interview is that he was quite unprepared. He was maybe not, I think he was probably expecting to be on camera, but, contrast to this, Flint Dibble, who went on Joe Rogan, did lots of preparation for that debate against Graham Hancock. And Zahi Hawass, I think he's just kind of come on here and been like, it's in my book, come to Egypt. Like, he's not providing a lot of... It's not to say that the information doesn't exist to back up what he's saying, but it would be useful for how it appears on the show for him to have that to back himself up, because otherwise it just looks like he's just like saying stuff willy-nilly, and that's just not going to help his arguments, in my humble opinion. Okay, I've waffled on for 10 minutes, and let's get into part 2 of the interview.
You know about Kidker case?
Yeah.
Okay, then
he had a vision that there was a chamber underneath the Sphinx's paw.
Underneath the right paw of the Sphinx, there is a chamber.
And he envisioned that, correct?
Yes, and this is why I'm going to Virginia Beach to give a talk. One of the cities in my tour now is Virginia Beach. Why? Because when people began to tell me there is something inside the Sphinx, I really, as I told you, I have an open mind. And I did search. I found inside the Sphinx 4 tunnels. One behind the stela, they call it dream stela, between the 2 balls of the Sphinx. And the second...
So I reference this. So the dream stela, let's see if I can get a picture of it. I'm going to just, for the sake of the copyright, I mean, I'm probably going to get, this is probably will be copyright banned once it finishes processing, but I'll dispute it again tomorrow. But yeah, so the dream stela that he's talking about is this big rock that's right in front of the Sphinx, this upright, that looks like a different color than everything else. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. So the dream stela was erected by, I think it's Tutmosis the Fourth. Let me just check, because Tutmosis the Fourth, yes. So it was erected by, he basically went on so Tutmosis the Fourth is from the 18th dynasty, and he, so it's about 1,000 years removed from Giza, and he was a prince at the time. He wasn't king yet, and he went on a journey and ended up sleeping around the Sphinx. At this time, it was covered in sand, or partially buried in sand, and he slept there, and he was like sent a dream by the gods. I forget which god. I'll have to is it stela itself? Just have to refresh my memory, because this is the thing, it's like there's just so much to cram in my brain. I can't necessarily keep it all straight all the time. I have to do a refresher. Anyway, oh, it was made in the first year of his reign. But I thought he did it while he was still a prince. Anyway, irrelevant. So he fell asleep in between the paws of the Sphinx, and he was like given a vision. And then when he became, I think it was a vision that he was going to become king when he was a prince. And then when he becomes king, he comes back and he makes a stela about it. Interesting thing about the Sphinx as well, that I wonder if he is, or not sure if he is or is not going to bring this up, is that it we actually don't know what the original, like the ancient Egyptians of the Old Kingdom called it. The Sphinx comes from the Greek, like, riddle sphinx, mystical creature. It's not what the Egyptians actually would have called it, but we don't actually know the name for it. But there's sphinxes all over Egypt. This is just obviously like the biggest, best one that we have. Anyway, we'll get back into the video.
One behind the head in the top.
Right, there's actually a door in the top of the head now.
No,
right?
no.
Like,
Just
there's a lid,
just
right?
a tunnel.
A tunnel.
25
But isn't
feet.
it closed off though?
No, yeah, it's closed. Yeah,
Yeah, there's like a door on the top of it, right?
It's not a door. No.
A lid.
There's like it's a modern door. It's like a trap door so that people don't climb inside of it. Obviously.
It's just a tunnel. Go down.
Okay, but it's closed off.
You cannot go up to the Sphinx. That's why we have to cover it, because it will take rubbish and garbage.
Well, that's the top. That's what I'm talking about. Isn't that the top of it?
Is this a Sphinx? Yes, that's
Yeah.
it.
Okay, that's a lid, right?
Yeah,
That's what I said.
we covered it.
Okay. Yeah.
But we covered it
Got it.
to protect it from the sand.
understand.
But it's not a
Yes.
door.
Okay. It's a lid.
The third tunnel that I found in the back.
Now, Edgar Casey,
But
he had this.
In the dream from the Sphinx appeared to Tutmosis IV in a dream and promised that he would become king of Egypt if he clears the sand from its paws. That's the dream that he received.
This vision that there was some hall of information.
I
that
know,
was
but
down there.
I'm going to come to this now.
Yeah.
But I'm talking to you about the tunnels
Okay.
now. And the third one is in the tail. The fourth one,
There's a tunnel in the Sphinx's butt. I wonder what that was supposed to be.
was opened in 1927 by a French. His name is Monsieur Perez. And I do have photos of workmen inside the Sphinx. We found
Mr. Beast went inside the Sphinx.
these 4 tunnels are published. An article, scientific article. I found in situ, in all the 4 tunnels of pottery, in situ, to prove that these tunnels were opened on Dynasty 25, 500 BC, as in the late period. When the Egyptians saw the Sphinx, they thought there is something hidden underneath. And they dug, and they found nothing. Now, we come to the Edgar Casey and what people believe, because we had John Antonowist, and we had many New Age people who believe there is something hidden underneath the Sphinx. And they used to tell me, we need your permission. To what? To drill. I said, how can I let someone who's not an archaeologist, who's not a scientist, to drill? No way.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why people think that you should just be able, this seems to be a really popular opinion, that you should just be able to, like, I have this theory, let's test it, and we're going to drill through the Sphinx. That's not how it works in archaeology, because archaeology, drilling, excavation, etc., it is a destructive process. I don't know what else I can do to emphasize this to people. It is, once you drill a hole, you cannot get rid of that hole. You cannot unexcavate something. So in order, and for somewhere like the Sphinx, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it is the last of the standing of the Giza and the Great Pyramid and all these places are like, it's the last great wonder of the ancient world that is standing. If you want to do something destructive there, you better have like the best reasoning, a qualified team, and like a really sound hypothesis for thinking something is under there. or reasoning. So, like, for example, if you're doing the remote sensing, this is why I'm not going to get into the synthetic aperture radar stuff again, but the synthetic aperture radar stuff is not proven, it's not been tested rigorously enough to be able to justify going to test out if it's true at this point in time. And I very much doubt that there will be a point in time where that's the case, but that's an entirely different story. So, yeah, like, I completely agree with him. We shouldn't just be letting people do these things just, you know, because they think something might be there and they don't actually have any evidence for it. The Sphinx has been remote sensed, like subjected to remote sensing, and the conclusions of that remote sensing haven't been like conclusive enough. Some of them show that there's things, that there's voids, or there might be something there, and some of them don't. So the fact that they don't line up mean that we're just not going to go ahead yet, because until you have something that is, you know, really testable and has a really high likelihood that it's correct, it's just not worth the risk or the damage to the ancient monument. They actually think that some of the holes were for potentially like holding stuff into it. So apparently some New Kingdom stela depict the Sphinx having a crown, so they think that it might have been an anchoring hole for that. And yeah, as he's saying, the other parts of it might be and ancient attempts to see if there was anything underneath it.
But recently, I found out the rise of the water table in front of the Sphinx.
It's not a matter necessarily of the Egyptians letting the Sphinx get buried. It's more of a matter of, like, there's sand. It's Egypt. It takes effort to clear it off, and it wasn't always as, like, considered clearly as important. It was a relic of the Old Kingdom. When the Old Kingdom collapsed, there's, like, not the same incentive to probably keep these things alive. I don't know if it was that important to them for various, you know, these things go up and down as trends through time. It's not necessarily a constant. So, yeah.
And I was really afraid that the water could damage the Sphinx. Then I brought a team from Cairo University, and we did drill 30 to 35 feet underneath the Sphinx, everywhere. And I do have photos of everywhere under the Sphinx.
Okay.
The Sphinx is a solid rock or
Yeah.
a living rock, and there is nothing underneath.
So there's no tunnels.
No tunnels. This is
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
It's no ancient hall or library full of mystical things. Like, yeah. I mean, this is the thing, it would be amazing if that was the case. And the fact that people think that that's being covered up by archaeologists is something that I really just don't understand. Like, we would be first in line to be like, let's get everything out of that library. Let's go inside. Let's excavate it. Like, we are the ones who are looking for all this ancient knowledge and are trying to piece together the lives of ancient people. There is no reason for us to try and hide a discovery of that magnitude. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
I told you what.
What do you think about Robert Schoch and his theory about the temple and the erosion outside of the Sphinx, that it's water erosion?
When Schoch said that, we brought through the American Research Center a scientist from Louisville University. I don't remember his name now. And we gave him what Robert Schoch. You know what Robert Schoch said? It's not his theory. It's a theory of a New Age guy who talked about this before, and John Anton West brought
Schwala.
I don't remember who.
Yeah.
Then we
That's the guy.
gave this guy from Louisville University, who was an Indian American, who really studied. He came to the Sphinx, and he worked with us for a season. And he came, and we published many articles that the erosion that you see outside and inside the Sphinx is from wind and not from water. Now, what Schoch want to say? That this is dated back 15,000 years ago. I agree. Okay. if I came here and I dug the Sphinx, I will leave something. Then what I did, we dug an area northeast of the Sphinx. I found level Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, Roman, nothing underneath. Then this New Age people say that the head of the Sphinx is very small comparing to the body.
Right.
Yes. Why?
Why?
If you take all the casing stones away from the Sphinx, you'll find exactly here.
Okay, by casing stones, he's talking about the restorations that have been done at the Sphinx. So if you, I'm going to see if I can find this in my complete pyramid. I did look at this in the complete pyramid. What page is this? 129. Let's see if we can. 29. If I can pull this up for you guys. Righty ho. Oh, I don't want to unlock this page after an ad. Oof. This is what happens when you're using freemium online stuff. Skip ad. So, what he's talking about is, I suspect, these. So you see this colored, all these kind of colored looking bricks. This is like a, well, it's a section plan drawing. It shows the different restorations. It's a photogrammic elevation of the Sphinx from the south, showing a patchwork of the ancient and modern restoration masonry. So these are, they're stones, but they're like bricks. So this is, so as you can see, there's a lot of different phases, from the New Kingdom, the late period, Greco-Roman, the 1940s, the 60s and the 70s, etc., etc. There's also the natural rock. So the stuff that's not colored in here is the natural rock of the Sphinx. So I think that's what he's talking about here in terms of the size, because the size is obviously in some ways kind of engineered by the people who did the restorations of it previously.
The Sphinx, and now this, and another part like this. In between, there is a hollow. Remember, I told you that Giza Plateau is divided to 3 levels. Level 1 and 2 is very bad stones, can be seen to the chest of the Sphinx. Right. Level 3, they carved the head from level 3. Then when the Egyptian carved the head to represent the King Khephren with the cobra, the royal head Remes, they began to make a lion body. Then what they did, they filled this hollow between the 2 Sphinx pieces with stones. And they covered the whole body of the Sphinx with stones. And they did the modeling of the lion body on the covering stones. And this is why the head is very small comparing to the body.
So you think the head was made first and then the body was made later?
Exactly.
If that's the case, why is the body so much more eroded than the head?
I told you, the body, it is.
Because the body is the worst, is like the crappier limestone, so it's going to erode more. I mean, yeah, like limestone is not a very hard stone. It's very friable. It erodes very easily. So yeah, it makes sense that 4,000 years of wind exposure. And also we have to keep in mind here, it's not just wind, it's wind filled with sand. Sandblasting is a thing in modern day. It's obviously not exactly the same, but they will have sandstorms in this area of Egypt. It's in the desert. The wind has sand in it. It is going to erode the Sphinx. It's not just like regular, just a nice cool breeze, so to speak.
A part of the bad stones.
Bad stones.
So the top one is the head.
Stones.
Exactly.
So there's a different density to the stones. That's why the stone in the Sphinx's head is intact, and the body is a softer stone.
It's level 3.
So it's a different.
It's better quality limestone, so it hasn't eroded as much because it's better quality limestone. That's what he's saying.
Kind of stone.
Exactly. Of the body. And this is why
because there's layers to it all, and some of the layers are more dense.
The Egyptian wanted to make a lion body. They couldn't. The only way is to cover the body of stones and do the modeling of the lion body on the covering stones. Can we take 2 minutes rest?
Yeah, sure. You want to take a break?
Yes, to go to this bathroom.
Okay, go to the bathroom. You know where it is?
Yes.
Just go outside, take a left. We're back. The Sphinx. Let's pick up where we left off. So you were saying that these other experts that looked at it didn't agree that it was water erosion and said that they think that it was wind. So what John Anthony West and what Graham Hancock and what Robert Schoch and all these different people are trying to allude to is that perhaps there was even older stuff that was in Egypt, and that the things that...
I also want to just point out that the Sphinx, the original Sphinx body, is carved out of bedrock. It's not like they came and placed it there. It was carved from existing rock. So it's really hard to I just need to point that out.
that you're seeing that are 2,500 BC, those are even more recent than the older stuff. Tell me about Zep-Tepi.
What's Zep-Tepi? What's this?
You never...
He's going to ask him about a non-Egyptian archaeological site. Okay.
Heard about... Have you heard about about the King's List, right? The old King's List that goes back 30,000 whatever years.
Who said that?
You never seen it? It's not in hieroglyphs?
This is not true.
There's multiple king lists. There's not just one king list. There's multiple of them. Probably the most famous is the Turin Canon. Is that? No, I think I'm... king list. Turin King List, not canon. Come on, Rachel. Oh, no. The Turin Royal Canon. I was right. Ha ha ha. It's a hieratic papyrus thought to date from the reign of Ramses II. It resides in Turin in Italy. It's the most extensive list of kings compiled by the ancient Egyptians and is the basis of most Egyptian chronology before Ramses II. There are other king lists that exist. Other kings also wrote these lists. And this is how a lot of the time they try to determine, well, it's one of the things that they use to try to determine the lengths and the orders in which these kings ruled, because they're written at different times by different kings. And so when we compare them all together, we can then try and see where are the discrepancies. And this is where sometimes with Hatshepsut and them trying to erase her from the record and stuff like that. I think she was mentioned in some, but maybe not in others. I'd have to look into that more in depth because it's been a while since I've read up on her, but yeah.
True.
Is that true?
No. This is a speculation from people who knows nothing about history. There is nothing king list dated back 30,000 years ago at all.
So why do people keep saying that?
Because they don't know. It's speculation. Give me one evidence of that. The first king list dated back to Dynasty 5. Only.
I was reading that people were saying that it was myth, that the King's List, even though there is some hieroglyphics of ancient kings, that these are just mythical things.
So I haven't heard of this either. When I Google it, it says Zep-Tepi is not a king list, but a concept in ancient Egyptian religion and philosophy referring to the first time or original time, a period of creation and cosmic harmony. So it's basically their creation myth. What it kind of sounds like. Which, if you didn't know, in the Egyptian creation myth, in the beginning, there was sky and the water, and then a mound rose out of the water, and then the gods were created, and they had a bit of a dust up. Some people lost eyes, some people lost lives, some people did some really nasty things with a dead body. I can get more into that if people want to know. But yeah, he's using a really esoteric name for it. He should be talking about the Egyptian creation myth. Which Zahi would know about. Zep-Tepi, when you say that, sounds like you're referencing a site in Göbekli Tepe. Like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is obviously not within Zahi's wheelhouse.
This is not true. There is no at all a name that you told me. I never heard of this name. I am an Egyptologist working in Egypt for the last 57 years. I never heard of this king list at all.
Never?
Never. And
You never even heard of it?
why I have to hear about it? Because it's not true. I don't want to waste my time in things like this. I am a person, give me a fact.
So in
Tell me, where is
ancient
this list?
Egyptian, Zep Tepi refers to the first time or the first occasion.
Who
It
said
refers This is an AI. It refers to a mythical golden age of Egypt where gods lived on earth and civilization was in its infancy.
Ah, so we Googled the same thing.
This period is often associated with the beginning of creation and the establishment of societal structures. Have you've never heard of that before?
No, and this is not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
I mean, this is like, I think that he's getting a bit flustered or like probably pissed off here about this. There's like Zahi Hawass will know about the creation myths of ancient Egypt, and there are texts that talk about it, but calling it Zep Tepi, I think, has just kind of thrown it off. It's a foundational concept in Egyptian culture, but it's not a historical king list. I don't know why it was referred to as such.
I mean, I'm getting this off of...
It never happened at all.
Okay, I'm not saying...
But yeah, it's like a foundational creation myth. It's like, I mean, this is probably gonna piss off people, but spoiler alert: the Bible is not, and the Old Testament is not a factual historical document. So it's like Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden, or like like any creation myth that we think about. Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously as something that definitely happened. Yeah.
I think it happened. I'm just saying that this is something that's referred to.
I never heard about it. It is not true. It has not existed at all.
Even if it doesn't exist, the myth of it exists.
I don't listen, Joe. Why do I have to go to a myth of people create stories?
If you go to Wikipedia,
I don't care about Wikipedia.
I understand.
I care about what I see in my eyes as an archaeologist or a philologist.
In all the myths, the world was said to emerge from an infinite lifeless sea when the sun rose for the first time in a distant period known as Zep Tepi, the first occasion. Different myths attributed to the creation of different gods, the set of 8 primordial deities called Ogdod, the contemplative deity Ptah, and the mysterious transcendent god Amun. While describing these different cosmologies, competed to some extent. In other ways, they were complementary in different aspects of Egyptian understanding of creation. It's the Egyptian creation myth.
Fine.
You've never heard of that before?
Never heard of that.
That seems strange that you didn't hear about that before.
Listen, Joe.
I've heard of it before.
Fine, you can hear about it.
But I mean, I just found it online.
It's a new age theory.
It's new age?
Yes. Listen to me. I know, and any Egyptologist who study Egyptology in the States here, you have universities in UCLA, and you have Berkeley, and you have John Hopkins.
Yeah, I think now he's getting mad. So.
And you have every Egyptologist here study languages and archaeology. No one can answer what you are talking about. This is hallucination. I'm sorry. This is not true. It's speculation from people, but never in Egypt. We know the prehistory of Egypt. We know the pre-dynastic of Egypt. We know the beginning of civilization. We know there is no gap in anything that can let some things like that. And that's why I never heard of it, and I don't want to hear about it.
You don't want to hear about it?
No, why? Because there is no evidence. I am a scientist. I believe on what's written in front of me, and I believe of a scene that I can see. But I don't believe on theories like this. Tell me where is this found, and where it is, and who published it? What is the scientist who published it? What is the Egyptologist who talked about it?
I'd like to know. That's why I'm asking you.
I've never heard of it.
Well,
I mean, he has a point. Like, yeah, if you're going to pull up crazy theories or like this and say, oh, well, what's Zep Tepi and stuff like that, like, you need to say this is the person who's talking about it. And to be fair to Zahi, like what he's saying is true. Like, there is no evidence that the Egyptian creation myth is exactly true. whether or not you want to believe that Osiris was maybe a real king and he had a brother that they had a falling out and all this other stuff happened, that's fine. But yeah, like there's I respect him for saying the fact that he's a scientist and he's not just going to if you're going to come and try and say that these things are true or happened in antiquity, which I think is what this is referring to. That's not to say that this foundational creation myth didn't exist in Egyptian archaeology, or that it's untrue. I think what Joe is trying to get at, or my read of the situation, is that this idea that it is something that actually happened, not that it is a mythical tale that is present in Egyptian literature, so to speak.
I'm shocked that you haven't at least heard of it and dismissed it before. That seems weird to me. Because it's just I think it's a part of the creation myth.
I know, but it's not true.
It's Egyptian mythology, but I think there's a bit of a crisscross here. Zahi thinks he's asking, is it true, as in that it actually happened? And Joe's saying, oh, you've never heard of this, like, important part of Egyptian culture. I think that there's a bit of a communication mismatch going on here.
Lived many theories every day. My mind, Joe, now is really cannot stand all these theories, all of it. It's too much for me. It's too much for me.
Got it. See if you can find anything on that, Jamie, where that myth came from.
I'm working on it. I think I know.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it a Bouval thing?
What I just found is that it came from a
Who's Bouval?
book.
Bouval is not a scientist.
No, I'm just
Yeah, I
asking.
know. Those people, when someone came to you with a theory, he has to have a Egyptology background. He has to write a scientific article. We write all what we discover. We write articles about them for people to read and criticize and give us opinion. But I can go to theories like this
I understand.
that has no basis.
What do you base the dates on? Do you base it on carbon isotope?
No, we don't.
Carbon isotope. Oh my god. There's radiocarbon dating, and then there's stable isotope analysis. They are they're not complete. I mean, I suppose radiocarbon dating is a form of isotope analysis, but they are generally categorized as two different things. You achieve different things with them.
We based dating on the evidence that we discover.
Right.
We're gonna see. All right, I'm gonna let him because I want to finish this tonight, and we're in the final stretch, guys. I want to see what he's saying, but I do have an answer to this question by Joe.
Right, but some of it is based on carbon, right?
No,
Carbon testing.
I don't believe in carbon-date 14 at all.
You don't?
No.
Why not?
Carbon-date 14 never give an accurate dating. And this is why I believe, when you discover...
Okay, we're going to talk about this in a second. But what he's saying is sort of correct. In a nutshell, radiocarbon dating won't give you a lot of the time an exact date. Like this happened in year 2, etc. But it will often give you a window. It will give you a window of this happened from year 1 to year 20 with a margin of error of 30 years. So it's not exact. Perhaps that's why he doesn't like it. But yeah, it doesn't often give you this exact date. Getting exact dates is something that usually will involve multiple different types of dating methods to try and see if they can correlate and then figure out an exact year for something.
If you discover a symmetry,
right,
there is 2 types of datings. One called absolute dating. Means that in this symmetry, you have a name of a king and a date. This is absolute. But if you discover another symmetry and has no dates, then the best thing that we do is to find the artifacts in this symmetry and try to compare it with other dated symmetry. And you give a date for this.
But you don't believe in carbon testing?
I don't believe in carbon-date 14 at all. And it's not working in Egypt until today. I have been I'm excavating also in the Valley of the Kings.
Right.
And I discovered major important things that we can talk about it.
So if you're going back
but I
2,500 years,
used radar.
radar.
It like radiocarbon dating is really only useful for up to a certain amount of time. I think the limit is about 10,000 years. That could be pushed now, but there are other types of dating that they use for even older stuff. That's kind of irrelevant in something when pertaining to like human civilization, because that's roughly when we start to develop a lot of this stuff. And particularly in ancient Egypt, things are, the Old Kingdom dates to 4,600 BCE. Years ago. Yeah, my brain's not working very well today. But Egypt is well under that barrier, so to speak. It's more about how good your sample is, and then there's this thing called the old wood problem, which I'll talk about in a second.
All my excavation.
What do you mean?
And I never had a result by radar. And carbon date 14, people use it when there is no date. But
Wait a minute. You use radar to date things? How?
No, I use radar to discover things.
Right. But what do you use to date them?
I dated, as I told you, 2 methods of dating.
Yeah.
Most of the dating that for me now in Luxor is based on evidence. Like I discovered the Golden City. It's a major, big, large cemetery, large settlement, a city. And this city was chosen the most important discovery in the world of year 2021 because this is the first time that we have a big, large city to tell us about the people who made this civilization.
So how do you know how old the city is?
Exactly. In the city, we discovered the names everywhere of King Amenhotep III, who was the father of Akhenaten. Inside the city, we found many statues of his queen, Queen T. We found inscriptions about dried meat stored to celebrate the third Set festival of Amenhotep III. We found 9 royal workshops in the city. Then the city tells us about the golden age of that king. It is dated by pottery, by hieroglyphic inscription, by many
understand.
things.
But I'm curious as to why you're skeptical about carbon dating, because I think carbon dating is generally accepted as being accurate within a certain framework.
It is, but
right?
I never used it. And many people, very rare to use it in Egypt, because in Egypt, mainly, we have absolute chronology. We have absolute dating based on inscriptions.
Right, but I thought it was used in Egypt, like to measure wood that was in mortar.
He's talking about the pyramids. So this is what we're going to talk about is this. This is the old wood problem. So, and I think this is partially, we'll see why Zahi Hawass doesn't like to use radiocarbon dating. So the thing to understand about radiocarbon dating is that the way it works is that it can tell you the date at which a physical organism that consumes carbon died. In archaeology, and certainly with things like wood or certain objects, we, think about it. We cut down a tree, we kill it, it dies, at which point it stops absorbing carbon, and then we continue using it for however long. So, think about vintage furniture, for example. If you were to take a radiocarbon dating sample of a piece of vintage furniture from say the 20s, but you're still using, but then it's found in your house, that's going to be really confusing because the furniture is a lot older than everything else that you're finding in the house. And so there's where the mismatch is coming from. So what I think Joe Rogan is talking about here is one of the things that they've tried to do at the pyramids is there is mortar between the stones at the pyramids, and to create that mortar they would have had to burn wood, and there's charcoal in that mortar, and then they've tried to date that charcoal that came from the wood fires. That was anyway, so they're basically trying to use that as a way to do radiocarbon dating for the pyramids. But this is where this old wood problem comes in, is that we don't know that the wood that was used in the making of the mortars was wood that was freshly cut down and then used. There's a theory that I read once somewhere that they were using all of the wood in the kingdom to light the fires to make the mortar. And so there was stuff that was, inherited for generations that had been used for a long time that then got used. And so that's caused the discrepancy in the dates, because I do believe the radiocarbon dating for the pyramids came back as it being older than we generally think they are. And that's why they think that's happened. And that's probably why Zahi Hawass doesn't use it a lot. And this is another thing that to point out, that with Egypt and radiocarbon dating, yes, they do have a lot of much better methods for absolute datings, in terms of they have king lists, they have inscriptions, they have a very well established pottery and artifact chronology. So they don't need radiocarbon dating the same way that a lot of other civilizations do, because they have a lot of other resources that they can use for dating. But also, Egypt doesn't have a lot of trees. So there's just not the same amount of material, because a lot of the times the thing that you're carbon dating is trees, or charcoal, leftover bits of that. Here in the UK, the thing that we use a lot for radiocarbon dating is hazelnut shells. They use that a lot for prehistoric sites that they find in old hearths and stuff like that. But yeah, Egypt just doesn't have a lot of wood, and they're not doing a lot of the radiocarbon dating on the bodies, and that's probably more of a question to do with damaging them for the sake of creating a sample, I think. The official date of the Khufu pyramid, yeah, that's a good point about the cedar. Stone. The thing is, the stone was made millions of years ago. The stone itself can't be dated. It's not biological. Radiocarbon dating is only something that can be done to to living beings that consume that consume carbon. So, we can be C14 dated. Trees, plants, etc. can be carbon dated, but yeah, stone cannot.
Date the Great Pyramid to 2500 BC.
No, that was an experiment to date the pyramid. I think was about 2009.
Yeah.
And it's not working.
But
I didn't see the result.
You haven't seen a result on carbon testing of the mortar of the Great Pyramid?
No, but the mortar, you can't. One thing, the mortar between the stones.
Right.
This mortar, like, if you take a piece of stone from the pyramid and you try to take carbon-14, this piece of stone could be thousands of years in the quarry. It cannot date the pyramid. How can you date?
Hold on. You don't date stone.
I'm saying if you date mortar.
Okay.
How can you say accurately that this mortar is dated to the same time of building the pyramid?
Well, you can actually. That's the argument, is that there's probably repairs done, right? And so
of the pyramid?
Yes.
No, of the Great Pyramid, there's no evidence
repairs,
of any
there's
restoration.
No renovations, no restoration,
never,
nothing?
Never.
They don't like to restore. Nobody's ever tried to my knowledge, restore the Great Pyramid. Instead, they like to take the stones away and recycle them for their own building projects. That's why we don't have the casing stones on it anymore. The stone was all robbed out by people to use for their own use.
Any accurate evidence that the pyramid was restored,
right, but
in any period of the Egyptian history.
There is restoration that goes on even now, though, on the Sphinx, correct?
I did make 10 years of
Sphinx is different than the pyramids, Joe.
Restoration on the Sphinx. It's me who did the restoration of the Sphinx for 10 years.
Why did you decide to do that?
Because the Sphinx, when I left, I was studying in the States. I came to take my doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania from 1980. From 80 to 87, some architect and archaeologists were really stupid. They began to restore the Sphinx, and they took all the casing stones of the Sphinx out, and they put modern stones and they used cement. You cannot use cement in the restoration. You can use cement in building a house.
Yeah, that's not even restoration. This is
Then,
a new creation.
When I came, I stopped this restoration.
Okay.
And because this restoration damaged completely the proportions of the Sphinx. It brings to you another Sphinx.
Right.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Few months later, there was a stone was restored in the shoulder of the Sphinx, and it fell down. In February, it was raining. And always people use the Sphinx for politics.
The Sphinx?
The
For
Sphinx.
politics?
Yeah, if they
In what
want.
way?
I tell you, it happened the first time in the Pharaonic period. You know, the area beside the Sphinx was called the Valley of Gazelles. And the princess of the new kingdom used to come to hunt wild animals in the valley and come to worship the Sphinx. And this story that I'm telling you is written in a granite stela. It's called the Dream Stela, located now between the two poles of the Sphinx. In the stela, it says that Thutmose IV was a prince, and he came to have a nap beside the Sphinx. And the Sphinx came to him in dream and told him, "My son, if you remove the sand away, I will make you the king of Egypt." Then he removed the sand, and he came to a temple. He found a door.
What year was this?
This is 3,000 years ago, exactly.
So the Sphinx was constructed long before that.
Before the Old Kingdom.
And that it had been covered in sand.
Yes, completely. This is why Herodotus, the father of the history, when he came to Egypt in the middle of the 5th century BC, he never talked about the Sphinx because it's completely under the sand. Then when Thutmose IV came, he took the sand away, and he found that the Old Kingdom casing blocks are falling down. He put them back. And he went to the Sphinx, a temple nearby. He took this granite stela as a door, and he wrote this story in it. But we found there is something politics in that story. He killed his elder brother, who was supposed to be the king of Egypt. And he wrote this story to tell the Egyptian that the god Hor-Im-Akhet, Horus of the horizon, it
That's one of the names that they have for the Sphinx.
chose me to be the king of Egypt. Then they will forgive the crime that he did. When that stone, it fell down in 1988, a big fight happened between the head of Antiquities and the Minister of Culture. Ended by firing the head of Antiquities. It's politics.
I
But
see.
I stayed 10 years. When people ask me about the best thing that I did in my life, I say two things. Number one, that I restored the Sphinx. I brought,
I don't know if Zahi Hawass would ever deign to speak to me, but if he would like to come on and talk about his career as an archaeologist on Ask the Archaeologist, I am more than happy to have him and welcome him on my kind of podcast. It's not really a podcast; it's just a YouTube thing that I do. But yeah, I totally would be up for that if his team would like to do so.
the proportions of the Sphinx back. And I restored the oldest pyramid in Egypt, the Step Pyramid. It was falling down. In 14 years, I made major important conservation and restoration. And I tell people, why do we have to fight all the time about the age of the pyramid? We have to fight, or we have to cooperate, all of us, to restore these monuments. And the most important thing is for me always is conservation. And
It's really interesting that he talks about that because, well, actually, when I would love to go and see the restored step pyramid, because when I went to Egypt over 10 years ago, it was covered partially in scaffolding, and they would have been doing this restoration that he's talking about. And I've never been inside of it. I've actually never been inside a pyramid. I've seen them. I've been there. I've touched them. but I've not actually had the chance to go inside. And it's interesting that he says that, though, because there was actually there's a difference between conservation and restoration. Let's just be clear about that. Conservation is trying to preserve something. Restoring it is trying to kind of preserve and rebuild it. So Zahi Hawass's successor at the Antiquities at Council, or whatever you want to call it. I can't remember, Waziri, I think is his name. It came out, I think it was last year, in a joint project with a Japanese university, saying that they were going to use take some of the granite, is it granite or basalt? Some of the casing blocks from Menkaura's pyramid, which are the best preserved ones at Giza and are around the base of the pyramid, and are still there, and they were going to try and put them back and do like a partial restoration of the pyramid, and this caused a huge hubbub. People were pissed, and Zahi Hawass was part of a council of archaeologists and engineers, etc., people that were appointed to assess this project to determine whether or not it would be allowed to go ahead, because even though it is theoretically trying to restore the pyramid, still, like, we don't know how exactly these things were built, so any restoration that we have is going to be fairly modern in its nature. And yeah, Zahi Hawass was called in to head the council to determine whether or not it could go ahead. They determined it would not be going ahead, and I have been told, although I've not been able to confirm it, that the guy who was the head of Antiquities, because of that project, got sacked. So, yeah.
I dedicate.
Don't forget to remind him to bring his book. Zahi is an interesting figure, controversial. Not. I'd love to pick his brain. Yeah, I'd like to speak with him. It would be nice because, like, I know people. I've said before, like, I know people who've interacted with him, have spoken to him, and they have nice things to say about him. They don't have negative things to say about him. So, you know, I think a lot of his reputation is just because he rubs people the wrong way, and he does not give a flying fart about that. He doesn't care about other people's feelings in that respect, and that's fair enough. You do you. The reason I've not been inside the Great Pyramid or any pyramids, when I went to Saqqara, it wasn't an option to go inside the Step Pyramid. B, when I went to Giza, at that time, I don't know if it's still the case now, they didn't, there was like a limited amount of tickets for going inside the pyramid that were issued each day, and they were extra. So, you know, your ticket got you into the site and you could go and look at the pyramids and everything, but it didn't get you a guarantee to go inside. There was like maybe, let's say, like 100 tickets issued a day. I'm just making that number up. And they obviously would all sell out. At the time when I was visiting Egypt, I'm not going to say a poor student because, like, you know, my parents are upper middle class. But I was financing the trip, and at least partially, like, I was financing myself while I was there. And at least one actual thing about the trip that I was on, don't go on top deck tours or read the fine print, was my friends and I had booked this tour through a travel agent, and we showed up for the tour and found out that our tour was fine. It covered our hotels and transport and everything, but it didn't cover, the fine print said that it didn't cover the entrance fees into any of the places that we were visiting, which I would expect to be included in a tour, and they were not. So we were having to kind of scramble around to try and find money to go inside all the museums, all the sites, etc. And so for a lot of the places that we visited, we were just getting, you know, the base package ticket. So we weren't able to afford to go into all of the pyramids, and we weren't given the opportunity even to book those tickets. So yeah, if I were to ever be able to go back to Egypt, that would be one thing that I would do, is I would pay to go inside the Great Pyramid and Khafre's Pyramid and Menkaura's Pyramid as well. I would do all three. I would love to be able to do that. It's the same thing like at the Valley of the Kings. In case you've never been to Egypt, maybe it's changed since then. I doubt it. Your ticket when I went, as I recall, gets you into 3 kings' tombs, except for Tutankhamun's. If you want to go inside Tutankhamun's tomb at the Valley of the Kings, you have to pay extra. And if you want to see more than 3 tombs, you have to pay extra. So it's just like, it's like all these subscription services nowadays where you get the base package, but then if you want no ads, you have to pay more. If you want high quality streaming, you have to pay extra, et cetera, et cetera. It's really frustrating. Anyway.
Most of my life, not only to the excavation, but to conservation.
What do you think the arguments are that predate that try to push the date back of the construction of the pyramids?
I never heard of this.
You've never heard of this
No,
before?
it's only new. It's a theories
Right,
from the new age.
But I
No,
know I saw a
no.
debate with
Yeah.
you. I saw a debate with you and Graham Hancock, and there was another archaeologist.
That was
But
no.
hold on. The other archaeologist was saying, if you're saying that something happened 10,000 years ago, where's the evidence of any
Exactly.
civilization from 10,000 years ago?
Exactly.
But then you found Göbekli Tepe. So Göbekli Tepe was buried over 11,000 years
That's
ago.
not true. I never heard about this.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true what I told you.
What is not true?
It never
Göbekli
happened.
Tepe?
We never discovered this at all.
Wait a minute. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey. Okay.
Oh, in Turkey. Listen.
Yes. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey.
I know.
It's
But
more
listen.
than 11,000 years old.
Okay, fine,
It's
fine.
very complex stone structures.
Fine.
But this was the evidence.
We are
Hold on.
No,
This is the evidence in the argument. The argument was there was no evidence of an ancient civilization from 10,000 plus years ago. This is before the discovery of Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe gets.
I mean, the thing is that, like, Göbekli Tepe, like you said, is in Turkey. So why is it somehow, it's all the way in Turkey before the dawn of most civilizations and the wheel, etc. Not to say that people didn't get about, but, like, why is it that's because something is all, like, just because something exists all the way over there, it doesn't then mean that there is also the same thing happening in Egypt? That doesn't make any sense.
Discovered, known
Especially since there's no evidence of that happening in Egypt.
to be more than 11,000 years ago. That changes everything. Because
No.
now we know. Yes, it does.
That's
'Cause
changed
now,
for
hold
what?
on. Because now we know there was an advanced civilization capable of a spectacular construction 11,000 plus years ago.
This
I mean, advanced civilization, like, this is a really blanket statement that he's saying. Like, what do you mean by advanced civilization? The fact that they were able to create monuments, that makes them advanced? Like, what is your barometer here for what you mean by advanced? Also, like, yeah, like, just because they were able to do this in Turkey doesn't mean that they were then also doing it in Egypt, and or, I mean, Göbekli Tepe is great, but it's like not on the near the same scale as the pyramids. Like, they're not even close to being the same in terms of, like, the scale of the project and what would have been needed to create either of them. Like, no hate to Göbekli Tepe, it's great, but it's like a bunch of stones stood up on their end and stacked, like, but they're not, it's not like the pyramid is completely different.
is what. Listen. Look at the archaeologist in Turkey or in any civilization.
Okay.
They never talk about old civilization.
That's not true. Göbekli Tepe is universally accepted as being
Joe,
more than 11,000 years
I
old.
am talking now about Egypt. I'm not
No,
going
I
to
understand,
another
but the
civilization.
argument was that there was
What
never
I-
any ancient civilization.
But the thing is okay, this ancient it's in Göbekli, this one site. Being in one site doesn't, like, having it in one site in Turkey, which is so far away from Egypt and all over the place, you have to find evidence of that civilization in all of these other places that you're claiming that it's touched. It's not enough for it to exist in one spot. It has to have evidence in multiple spots, especially if you're going to say, oh, they built it here. There is no evidence that the people of Göbekli Tepe built the pyramids, or were at the pyramids, or knew that they existed, not that they existed way back then. They're, like, one does not equal the other.
Capable of spectacular construction 10,000 years ago. Now that they showed Göbekli Tepe is more than 11,000 years old, they know for sure that's not true.
Okay, but now I'm talking about the pyramids of Egypt. I have the evidence, the written. We found everything about that. We know the dating.
Mm-hmm.
And I give you hundreds of evidence that this pyramid built by Khufu or Khufu.
No,
or
I'm
Menkaure.
not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't. What I'm saying is
any civilization older than we know,
older
we
and
have
still
no,
in the same spot.
We
How
have,
old
we have
does it
no,
go back?
We have no evidence.
So how does ancient Egypt emerge?
Emerge, we have,
How does it emerge and go from zero to pyramids?
okay, we have,
I'm actually, ironically, working on a video about this right now that I'm calling, working title, The Evolution of the Egyptian Pyramids. I will try to answer in brief. And just have to turn on the light because it's getting dark out. How did the Egyptians go from zero to pyramids? Well, they were hunter-gatherers who settled along the banks of the Nile and discovered farming. They discovered pottery. They slowly developed into two distinct kind of cultures, which we now call kind of roughly Upper and Lower Egypt. At one point, a king called Narmer came from one of these kingdoms and conquered the other one. This is very famously documented on his stela, not stela, palette, the Narmer palette, a cosmetics palette that he engraved with images of himself conquering his enemies for when he was putting on his eyeliner. And then we have unified Egypt. At some point, Egyptians discovered that their environment was really good at preserving bodies. That became important for their funerary tradition, the preservation of a person, and then they built their religious myths. At some point, they started digging into the ground to bury their dead in shafts, and then they started putting markers on top of it. These started as something that's called a mastaba, which is the Arabic word for bench, and they were mud brick, kind of like rectangular with sloping sided structures that they started putting over top of tombs. And then eventually a guy comes along called Djoser from the 3rd dynasty. He's a king, and he decides that he wants his mastaba to be better than all the rest. And so instead of just having one, he starts stacking them, and he builds it out of stone. And this is the step pyramid of Saqqara. Several kings after him followed this example, but none of their pyramids have survived in the same state of preservation. And then you get to the 4th dynasty and a king called Snofru, who decides that he's going to take the design to the next level and he's going to make it flat-sided. And so he actually had 3 pyramids. This is something that I always find really interesting about the people who are like, oh, the Egyptians couldn't build the Great Pyramid, blah, blah, blah. None of these people talk about Snofru. Snofru built 3 pyramids in his kingly lifetime and used way more resources, way more people, way more materials than Khufu ever did, because he built 3 of them. But I don't see anybody talking about how his pyramids are mythical time machines going to the middle of nowhere. Anyway, we think that roughly Snofru's first attempt at a pyramid is something called the bent pyramid, because about halfway through, it seems his engineers realized that the angle that they were building at was wrong, and so they changed the angle partway through building it, but it looked a bit wonky, so he decided, no, that's not good. So then he's going to go build another one. He built this other one at a site, his second one at a site called Meidum, and generally it's accepted that, again, they kind of got the angle and the engineering of it wrong, and it probably partially collapsed either during construction or shortly after construction, because it was built on unstable ground. So this ground couldn't support the weight of the stones, and the sides of it collapsed. He then moved on to Dashur, where he built his last pyramid called the Red Pyramid. This is where he might have been buried. They've not found his body inside of it. They're not sure. They've just not found the correct chambers. Maybe it's still hiding in there somewhere, or it was robbed in antiquity and it's empty. That one is the first true pyramid in Egypt, and then he dies, and his son Khufu decides to build the biggest one. And also, the pyramids don't stop being built after Menkaura dies. They keep being built for over 1,000 years into the reign, roughly 1,000 years into the reign of Ahmose I of the 18th dynasty of the New Kingdom. It's just they changed their construction methods and they started making them cheaply. And so those ones just don't preserve as well, and thus people don't know about them as much. That is my 2-minute summary, probably 5-minute summary of the evolution of Egyptian pyramid building.
Can you listen to me?
Yeah.
We have prehistoric Egypt.
Right.
And we have the old Stone Age, Middle Stone Age, Neolithic, when the Egyptians began to know about agriculture, and they began to live together in communities. Then after that, we came to the pre-dynastic, when a king called Narmer, in Dynasty 0, he began to make unification of the Upper and Lower Egypt. Until
I bet you Zahi's going to repeat almost everything that I just said. But just proves that, I mean, I haven't watched this. I was just coming up with that off the cuff, so.
a king called Mina or Horaha, who united completely.
And what year was this?
This is war was 3000 BC, 5,000 years ago. In a place called Abydos, they built huge mud brick tombs. Huge. From mud brick, no stones. And these tombs are created in a site called Abydos.
You know, what's really fascinating about this is that 500 years, you think about that, how different just modern civilization was 500 years ago. 500 years ago, we had almost none of the inventions we have today. We had no internal combustion engine, you know, no hardened steel, none of the things that we have. And now look what we have with electronics. Now imagine what the Egyptians were able to do in 500 years in a different way, in construction with stone. That their advancements weren't like our advancements, but their advancements were equally spectacular, just in a different way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Now I come back to the mud brick structure. This is in
Astaba.
Dynasty 1
Okay.
and 2. On Dynasty 3 came a king called Zoser. He had a genius architect. His name is Imhotep. I am searching. Did you hear about Imhotep before?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Everyone-
searching for his tomb. Only 2 weeks ago, before I came, I made a major important discovery in Egypt. I found a tomb of a son of a king. Inside, incredible statues of Zoser and his father and his queens and his children.
Where's this tomb?
In the shadow of the step pyramid, in the shadow
Saqqara.
of Zoser. And this really made me, because I have been searching for the tomb of Imhotep most of my life. But the area that I found this tomb, it was under houses, modern houses.
Oh, wow.
The workmen who work in the site, 100 years ago, they built houses in the site. But they never excavated what's underneath the houses.
Wow. So modern houses, and underneath there's an
Then
ancient...
Happens all the time, all over the world, when you don't have strict enough building codes to make sure that archaeology gets done before you build houses. I'm not entirely surprised that this happened this has happened in Egypt. I mean, it happens in the UK as well sometimes. But yeah, people have been living in the same spots for a long time.
tomb.
6 months ago,
Imhotep is a Egyptian. He was like a vizier of Djoser and a high priest of Ra, and people think that he might have been the architect for the step pyramid, like the first architect. But the more I read about him, the less I'm convinced that he was was the architect of the pyramid, and the more that I think that, I don't know, that's maybe an exaggeration, but I could be wrong. It would be cool to find his tomb. He was deified, he was made into a god in later Egyptian religion, but he wasn't a god of architecture as you might have think. I think he was a god of medicine? Yeah. After he died, he was treated as the author of wisdom texts and a physician. Yeah. Yeah, he was like a god of medicine. He wasn't a god of architecture. So, I don't know. That just doesn't really... obviously, the idea that he was an architect comes from somewhere, but I don't... I need to look into the evidence behind why they think that, because I haven't seen anything that's been really convincing to say that he is.
we gave houses to these people in another area, and we demolished these houses. And we found underneath major discoveries. This discovery will be in today's show this week. Now, I am sure now that Imhotep's tomb is in this area.
Wow.
Now I come
And
back.
what technology can you use to discover like
You
these
know,
underground caverns and chambers?
Joe,
And
all what I do is digging.
that's it.
That's it.
What if these Italian guys are onto something? You can find more stuff.
I want you to come to see what I do and what I discover.
I want to. I want
and
to
what
talk
I
to the
discover-
Italians too.
And what I discover, I can show it to you.
Please do. Jamie, Zep Tepi, did you find anything about that? About that? Where the origins of that?
Maybe a book from 1960, and I couldn't figure out how he got there.
It's probably a long slodge through information, try to get to the root of it.
Yeah.
But can we continue
With what?
how it happened until you have the pyramids?
Sure.
Then Imhotep came and he built the same mastaba. Mastaba in Arabic means a bench.
I was
built
right.
The
Well,
construction
I knew I
in
was
mud
right about
brick
that.
of stone for the first time. And he added more section to the first one. And he put above that 5 mastabas. It's called the
Step pyramid.
pyramid.
Yeah.
In the pyramid
So
text,
that's the first one.
in the pyramid text, they say that the step pyramid is a
The pyramid texts come from is it the 6th dynasty or the 5th dynasty? So people are always like, oh, there's no writing inside of the pyramids. Why isn't there? They would have written. I mean, there is writing. There's graffiti inside the pyramids. There's no inscriptions inside the pyramids. But yeah, okay. So it's the last ruler of the 5th dynasty. Unas is the first king to inscribe texts on the inside of his tomb, and these are known as the pyramid texts, and they are like prayers and religious texts to help guide the king towards the underworld. He was the first one to do it. Everyone else follows his example afterwards. That's where those come from, but they are notably not from the 4th dynasty. So the trend before that wasn't to write stuff on the inside.
stairs that the king is buried underneath to go to.
So these pyramids from later are obviously talking about the established burial traditions for pyramids that we've then inferred would have existed before that.
heaven.
Oh. And this one was how many years before the Great Pyramid?
It's almost 700 years.
So obviously it's not nearly as sophisticated as the Great Pyramid. So
But
in
this-
700 years they just got way better
But
at it.
listen, now on Dynasty 3,
I think it's like 200 years. I don't think that's... Djoser was a king of the 3rd dynasty, and Khufu was the 2nd king of the 4th dynasty. I don't think they're that far apart. I'm going to check this 1 second. So obviously we don't know exactly when Djoser, we have a rough estimate of when Djoser ruled Egypt. So it's around the 2680s, roughly. And Khufu is 26 BCE, 2600. So basically, less than 100 years separates them. I think Zahi just pulled that figure out of his head. To be fair to Zahi, why Joe's asking him this is kind of ridiculous. They could just Google it. As Zahi Hawass knows a lot about ancient Egypt, but you cannot keep the dates of every single king in your head like that. That's, I think, kind of unfair. They could just Google it.
there is another pyramid was found, and only I found recently that I did not excavate it completely. I found a pyramid, which is the end.
Yes, JT, as far as I'm aware it is, yes. Let me just look up let's reference the complete pyramids. Burial rituals. Netherworld. Pyramids as an icon. I want to know about the step pyramid. Here we go. Abydos. Do we have a... This is taking too long. Oh. It's built it's built completely underneath the first mastaba, but it's not. I'll just look it up in the book, and then I'll show you guys on the page 88 and 89. I'll show you it on the PDF thing. Let's go to page 88. Oh, I'm so close to finishing this. Oh, unlock this page after an ad. I should pay for a free trial of this, but I don't know how often I'll actually use it. Okay, so this is the step pyramid of Saqqara. And yeah, so you can see the access was inside the bottom first mastaba before they did more. It's actually a really extensive underground, like subterranean thing, like the big, massive burial shaft. Now we have to wait for another ad. One. So we've got that. That's the other half of it. Lots of galleries. This is probably what's is responsible for all of those things. It's like, oh, it's like a secret underground city because of that particular pyramid and what's underneath it. Anyway, let's get into the final stretch here. We're in the last 6 minutes.
Of Dynasty 3, of a king called Honi. Then now we came to
His
Senefra.
name is Horny?
Honi.
Honi, okay.
H-U-N-I.
Huni, this is the guy that on Zahi Hawass's latest documentary thing on Netflix that came out like a year or two ago. He was looking for Huni's pyramid. I wonder if he's going to say if he's found it.
Okay.
Then we come to Dynasty 4, Senefru.
Okay.
Senefru had a genius architect. His name was Nefermat. Then he started...
Sounds like a good name for a genius.
Yeah, he started to build a step pyramid like this in a site called Maydum. But for a reason we do not know, he left it unfinished. And he went to a place called Dahshur. He built the pyramid with a huge angle. And he changed the angle. It became bent. And he built another pyramid. If you look at the other pyramid of the father of Khufu, it's exactly equal to the Great Pyramid. This is the first true pyramid, but people never go to Dahshur to look at this pyramid. People always look at Khufu. Then you have, in Dynasty 4, the pyramids were huge because of the quality of the stones. In Dynasty 5 and 6, there is no good quality of stones. Then the Egyptian made decrease on the volume of the stones and did increase in the volume of the wall reliefs. Temples began to be decorated with scenes for the first time. In the Middle Kingdom, another trend. Mud brick pyramid, but underneath maze corridors of stones that if you go down, you will lose your way.
Oh.
In the New Kingdom, they came in the top of the Valley of the Kings, a shape of the pyramid, and they buried all the kings like King Tut and others underneath the pyramid shape.
Of a natural mountain. Yeah, the mountain that goes over the Valley of the Kings resembles a natural pyramid, and so they think that's partially why they may have chosen that site. Everything, he's just basically repeating everything that I just said about the evolution of the pyramids. Although, the order in which Snofru's pyramids were built is not entirely sure, I don't think. To me, it makes sense that they would do the bent pyramid first, then Maydum, then the red pyramid, but maybe they're switched. I don't know. Does it really matter? The like in the grand scheme of things, they clearly demonstrates that they were experimenting with pyramid building, and they were figuring out the correct angles and what they needed to do to make these things last and not collapse during construction. It's not that I don't think Imhotep's achievement wasn't convincing. It's just like when I look into Imhotep, I don't see, personally, people talk about him being the architect, but then when you actually look at it, there's no single document that says that's contemporary to the time in which he lived that says he was the architect. That all seems to be stuff that was an impression that was gained much, much later. So is it later, do they have that impression later because it's true, or is that just how his like myth developed? I don't know. He was a high priest of Ra. That's what we know about him. That doesn't mean that he was also an architect. What was the other thing that I was going to say about that? I don't remember. It'll come back to me maybe.
So that's the story.
That's a story.
All right.
Oh, yes. So like the pyramids get cheaper. And also there's an interesting thing when I was researching for my video that he didn't mention was that the pyramids, yes, get smaller of the kings after the 4th dynasty, but the pyramid temples get bigger. And they get more complex. And there's a lot more effort being put into the temples that are built as a part of the pyramid complexes than there seems to be emphasis into the pyramids, which, considering that the Old Kingdom trend seems to be shifting where the power balance between the king and the priests of the religion seems to be shifting. So the king is kind of becoming less and less of, a king god figure, and the power of the priests is rising. So it kind of seems to demonstrate that this is becoming the power of the priesthood, who are the people that are living and working at these temples, worshiping the funerary cults of the kings. They're becoming a lot more important, so the place that they're doing all the worshiping of the king as a deified god in the afterlife becomes really important, and the place where the king's body is actually resting becomes less important, or at least that seems to be the trend that's followed.
But listen, man, it's been fascinating talking to you, and I definitely am going to take you up on your offer, and I'm definitely going to go to Egypt.
No, now we'll talk.
Now we'll talk.
We'll talk to
And
Mustafa.
you gotta send me that video so we can splice it in of the hieroglyphs that are on the wall. You'll send that, right?
I will send it tomorrow.
Okay.
But give the email to Gregor and Mustafa now.
We will do that.
And they are the people that will talk to them now to arrange for your trip.
Okay.
And I will invite you for a good...
How many days do you think I should go?
10 days at least.
Jamie, you got to come. Okay. You want to do a podcast?
Forever.
Just you and me.
Let us do one inside the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will it be echoey though?
Oh, here's another problem with the idea that these Italians are proposing. Isn't there a water table under the pyramid that's like 1 million years old?
No.
There's not water underneath there?
No. This is the Osiris shaft.
There's a water table, yes, but it's like the water table's everywhere. It's underneath everything eventually.
That was full of water.
So is that what Mr. Beast was swimming in?
Exactly.
But where's that water coming from?
It's a water table.
Oh, there is a water table.
This shaft, I brought a company, and we did suck all the water out.
Oh.
Until I found underneath a sarcophagus and 4 pillars.
Oh, wow.
And this is the symbolic barrier of the god Osiris. Because Giza Plateau was called in the New Kingdom Per User Nebrastau.
I'm not convinced that Mr. Beast paid a lot of money. I suspect it was a very mutually agreed upon thing. Because Egyptian tourism is, I don't know if it's doing very well at the moment.
The house of Osiris, Lord of Rastau. Rastau means cemetery, but literally means the underground tunnels. Oh. That Osiris is ruling. Then Herodotus, when he came, he talked about this water under the pyramid. It is in the shaft. And this when Beast entered inside and
swam in it.
Swimming.
Okay.
I
don't know if you would have been able to convince me to do that.
I wanted to convince the young people that pyramids were not built by aliens. That's why I took him to 3 major sites.
I don't understand the alien thing. I think super advanced culture, super advanced
But you know,
civilization.
but
and I
you know,
think the Library of Alexandria burning is probably
I
one
agree.
of the
But
greatest
Joe,
disasters.
many people in America believe that you believe in aliens. When I talk to them that I'm coming to see you,
That I believe in aliens?
they do.
Well, I'm not
That he believes in conspiracies about these things.
not opposed to the idea of aliens existing. There's hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe, each with hundreds of billions of stars. The idea that we're uniquely alone. You don't think there's anything out there? Nothing. So you don't believe in ancient civilizations capable
No.
of advanced construction?
Joe,
I mean, I believe in ancient civilizations there are ancient civilizations capable of advanced constructions. It's the ancient Egyptians. Like, I don't know how, like, what else I'm supposed to, like, yeah, you need to clarify this with that predating predating places like Egypt, because the Egyptians were clearly an advanced ancient civilization that were able to build great monuments.
You don't believe in aliens.
Joe, I
You
am
don't believe in
I am
carbon dating.
I am a scientist.
Oh.
If you believe in something, write an article.
I
Then I
understand.
can read. But don't give
If you believe in something, go find evidence for it and write the article.
me a theory.
But the
Ba- ba-
theory
ba- ba-
of
ba- ba- ba-
planets containing intelligent life is...
No, that's not true. I have been debating Graham Hancock and Robert Bafal and John Anthony West, and I told them from the beginning, your theory will go with the wind.
Right, but we're not talking about that theory. We're talking about aliens being possible.
No way.
No alien, just us.
This is
only
the
us in the
national
whole
project.
universe.
If you believe in
Zahi's getting confused. He thinks he's talking about aliens at, like, Giza, and Joe's clearly talking about aliens in general.
Us in the
God,
whole universe,
if
only
you,
us.
If you believe in God, you will do miracles. The Egyptian
Okay.
believed in the afterlife, and they made this great civilization.
I'm not saying aliens made it. I'm saying it's very possible there's something else out there in the
Okay.
world.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right,
I
goodbye,
really
everybody.
enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed it too, and I'll see you in Egypt. All right, bye, everybody.
I was just looking at the comments here. I was an orphan, spent years in foster care, 37-year-old, found my biological parents in his book. That's a great joke. That's hilarious. Right, well, that's us done, guys. We made it to the end. It only took me an hour and 37 minutes to finish this video. Oh my goodness. That took ages. You have like 2 minutes to put any final questions that you have in the chat. I will attempt to answer any final questions or follow-ups that you guys might have. And then I'm done because this has taken way too long. And I also need to do one on the Mr. Beast and all the Mayan pyramids, because that's also apparently causing a huge ruckus in Mexico. But yeah, well, I guess I have to summarize what I thought. I think that, I mean, I see the appeal for people of Joe Rogan. I like that he tried to challenge Zahi Hawass on, really trying to back up what he was saying with evidence. I am really disappointed that Zahi wasn't better prepared with evidence and just kept on going back to, it's in my book. Because, yeah, that's not how you win over an audience. I don't think that it's done. I don't think it's like, it's not the end of Egyptian archaeology. I don't think it's a big win for pseudo-archaeology either. But I don't think it's helped. I don't think it's done a really... I think probably... Maybe it's sold a few tickets on Zahi Hawass's lecture tour, which is, good for him. I don't think it's necessarily will have converted anybody into believing, or converted anyone who really wants to believe in the pseudo-archaeological theories into then not believing it, because there's just not a lot of the stuff that he talked about, which, to be fair, is probably a limitation on time. Was very surface level, and so it would be cool if they had like a specific topic and you could actually delve into it a bit more deeply, but that's just what it is. New video after they have a... You know what? They should be inviting me on the trip to Egypt. This is what should be happening. Although I do have a baby, so that might be a bit difficult to do. But how cool would it be if I could say that I brought my child into the pyramids before she was even like a year old? That would be pretty cool. She would have to become an archaeologist after that. Although, is that necessarily something I want? I don't know. Congratulations, all of us making to the end of a Joe Rogan. Yes, exactly, JT. What's your opinion on Jean-Pierre Houdin's construction? So to be honest, I've not really looked. Hadn't really heard of it until you mentioned it. But to summarize, he thinks that there was an internal ramp system rather than an external ramp system. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm not an expert in Egyptian ramps and building things. I am not an engineer. But I think an internal ramp does not make as much sense to me as having an external ramp. But this is entirely possible that I'm really biased by the fact that when I was young, I played this game. It's called Pharaoh. I've done a few live streams playing it where you build cities in ancient Egypt, and the way that the game does it, which will have been based probably off of current research, is they have a spiral ramp that goes up the outside and it builds up as you build the inner layer, and then as you put the casing stones, you then take the ramp down as you put them on the pyramid. Actually, where is the ramps in... There's a ramp section. Page 216. Let's look at complete pyramids for one last reference. Oops. That is not... Here we go. Okay. This is... that's so annoying. Skip ad. So these are generally the ramps, different ramp systems that are proposed by various other scholars for how they think they might have done it. Like, I think Zahi Hawass was saying that these ones don't really, the top three, where it's just a single ramp, don't really make sense. The one on the second row to the right, which I'm hovering my mouse over, that's the one that I think that resembles most the one that I had in my game. Actually, this one has multiple ramps going up and around, which actually, if I were to looking at these right now and thinking, okay, in my somewhat educated opinion, which of these makes the most sense? Or which one do I like the most? I like the one middle row, very to the right, because it's got multiple access points, so you can be taking up more than one block of stone at a time. I like this one the best, but that is just my opinion. That is based on how I like how it looks. So it's not scientific at all. So don't take that as Bible, please. Yes. Okay. There's a quite robust hypothesis. There's a good documentary on it. There's evidence of a spiral from a scan. What kind of scan, though? Incorporates the use of gang gallery, having a functional use. If they built a brand new pyramid the size of the Great Pyramid, can we start a GoFundMe? I think you have to. Don't bother the GoFundMe. Convince Elon or Trump that a pyramid would be the best way to be remembered into the ages. And then you'll get someone building it in modern day. The theory's not shown in these answers, and his theory dates to 1999. His theory is after this book was written, so it's obviously not going to be included in the book. But yeah, Mark Leonard and Zahi Hawass, I think, both think that it's external ramps. I'm more inclined to believe them because they're the ones that have done the most research at Giza. Mark, they both have basically made their careers around that site, so they know what they're talking about. If you want to buy Zahi Hawass's book that he referenced so many times, and to find all of those lovely pictures instead of watching Flint's live stream, which you definitely should. You can buy it on Amazon. It's Giza and the Pyramids by Mark Lenner and Zahi Hawass. I think it's about £50. It's way more expensive than my Complete Pyramids books, but it's from 2017, so it's a bit more up to date. Yeah, I think that's it. No other questions in the chat. Darren? Sorry I didn't probably answer it properly, but I don't like to lie. He does want to Zahi Hawass does take credit for a lot of things. I don't know. That's his prerogative. He is responsible for a lot of good things in Egyptian archaeology, but does he personally make all of these discoveries that he's talking about? No. He supports the projects and will probably have been involved at some point in the permits or research funding or approving things for them, etc. Thank you so much for coming along, guys. Sorry if any of you are my regular viewers. It's no Tomb Raider streams for 2 weeks. It's just this stuff came up, and I have to sometimes jump on this stuff while it's hot to get the clicks so I can have the views and just keep the channel in an upward trajectory. So on that note, if you stuck through to the end, please consider giving a like, subscribe, etc., sharing, helping the video go further and farther. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope that you've at least come away with this with a bit of a background into what Zahi was saying to make, to help get his points across. Because largely, I do agree with what he, everything that he said, except for the fact that Djoser predates Khufu by 700 years, was correct, as you will have seen when I was a lot of the time, I agree with a lot of what he said. I just think that he could have prepared a bit better, some evidence to back himself up with it. And also I think that obviously at 2 hours, he is 77 years old, guys. I think both him and Joe were getting a bit frustrated with each other. And I think that naturally when you get frustrated, you get a bit flustered. And that's probably why he was, his knee-jerk reaction to some of those questions was quite aggressive. Take from that what you will. All right, my next video that's going to be coming out in the beginning of June, is going to be Archaeology News. I have some exciting interviews lined up for it this month. I actually am going to have 2 happening this month for that. And Tomb Raider, I have a prior engagement, so we're not going to be doing a stream next week, but I'll be back in 2 Sundays on June the 1st for Archaeology News for May 2025, which will be talking probably about Mr. Beast a little bit. And all the other exciting discoveries that archaeologists have made throughout the world in the month of May 2025. So thanks for coming along. It was great to have you guys here, and thanks for sticking around. I hope it wasn't too painful. Have an excellent rest of your week.